Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully your Tuesday is going well. Um, Full confession here, Tuesdays are not my favourite day, but anyway, just thought I'd do a quick live before I get into my next thing after finishing work. So today's post is something a little bit different. I know that we've been talking a little bit around the 10 success habits for any plan, but I've got a bit of a bonus one before I get to number 10 tomorrow. And this one is around some of the paradigms that might be holding you back. So, have you ever noticed that we seem to create these internal rules with ourselves? Um, and some of them we've sort of just picked up and adopted, and we might not even be conscious of them. Um, and one of these is around the paradigm of conditional happiness and satisfaction. So it's something that we're either brought up on or we've seen or we've something we've developed over time. And it's a paradigm that kind of teaches us that when we get or when we achieve the thing, we get to feel the feeling of, happiness or satisfaction. Um, and it kind of drives then this mentality that the outside creates the inside. So what it does is you kind of remove your power, right? Because you're relying on something that might be out of your control to happen before you get to feel a sort of a level of connection or happiness, which is perhaps not um, the most supportive way to approach or even recognize your progress, right? So, and then what you find as well, right, is that even if you do achieve the thing, and then you give yourself permission to actually feel the happiness or the satisfaction, then what actually happens? It lasts for about 2 minutes, and then, or if you're a bit of a doer and you just like to move on to the next thing because progress is everything, and you want to get to success and all that sort of stuff, then it's like you're like, well, whatever, skip that part, don't even acknowledge the milestones, and you're just on to the next thing, right? And I'm super guilty of this, especially at the moment, because I like laser focus on some very specific short-term goals, which I'm fully aware of and I'm okay with. So I've revisited some of this, and the old paradigm is basically like, when X happens, then I'll feel Y. And again, it's the outside influences the inside. Whereas the reality is that if we actually focused on the feelings first, which we can control, and it's cultivated by us, right? Because we get to choose our feelings, then we're more likely to attract what we actually want, which sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? So, what are some of the examples of this conditional happiness or satisfaction? Well, it sounds a bit like this. Have you ever heard yourself saying, "Oh, when I get that promotion, then I'll feel credible, or I'll feel successful, or I'll be able to afford these things." Um, you know, when I buy a house, then I'll feel settled, or I've accomplished something. When I feel married, then I'll feel like I can concentrate on other things. Or when I lose 5 kilos, then I'll feel sexy and I'll be able to wear a bikini. Um, you know, if so it's all these sorts of things. Or it's like when I get more money, then I can go and have the holidays of my dreams. And turns out you end up just having bills if you don't finish what you're doing. Or if I win this thing, then I'll feel happy. So it's some sort of achievement or something that's potentially outside of what we can control. So instead, the piece to do here is to flip that, is to actually think about what are the things that you want to feel from a day-to-day basis. Like, what if you woke up tomorrow and you had an entire day where you're like, hey, I get to choose how I want to feel about things, and I want to experience these emotions, and is it joy, is it calm, is it relaxed, is it spaciousness, the ability to be creative. What are the things, maybe it's abundance, maybe it's gratitude. So what are the things that you would want to feel on a daily basis? And then how do you go about actually cultivating that? So first of all, I want you to think about, before we go on working out what you want to feel, and then how we can potentially, flip the paradigm and actually work towards that. Let's actually just take a moment. So if you've got a pen and paper handy, maybe you can just sit there and take a few moments to really identify it. Some of the examples I gave probably resonate with you. We've probably all been guilty of it at some point in time. So one that's that I've got for an example is that I used to have back when I was more focused on my corporate career and a bit more trying to control things outside of my control. It was like, well, when I get, X role, which was, a promotion and a leadership role, then I'll feel credible, or I'll feel like I'm a success. Um, and as I'm actually nearing those things, I don't feel any different, but also I let go of trying to control that ages ago. There's still other things I have though, like for at the moment it's like, well, if I get more money then I'll start investing. It's like, well, why wait? So again, I'm putting some conditions on things that are outside of that. um, that's a slightly different one because it's not to do so much around feelings and that, or I guess there's a feeling of scarcity there, which is a little bit, it's not as surfacely obvious. um, Anyway, so again, getting back to the fact that, if you can just take away one thing, so you get to choose how you feel. And you might not initially, you might have an initial reaction though, but once you've recognized that, then you get a choice to make another one, whether or not you want to stay in that emotion or whether or not you choose to, potentially to move yourself out of that. Um, so again, I think what you want to do is when you choose the feelings you want to have, this is something that you need to actually create a little bit of space of to think about. So what are the things that make you feel satisfied or content or whole, or that you enjoy? So like, is it that I feel like being happy and all those sorts of things? So take a moment now and just sort of reflect on the feelings, emotions and observations that come through when you sit with that. So you might, in this live you're probably not going to have time, and it's probably one of those things as well that you might find that as you're doing something else, if you just ask yourself the question, what do I want to feel on a daily basis? You might not have anything that comes to you immediately, or if you do, whatever first comes down, just write it down and don't try and analyze it or try and justify it. There's no right or wrong answer, right? This is just personal opinion. But what you might find is if you're finding, oh, well, what do I want to feel? I've never asked myself that question. You might feel a bit kind of like you just had complete deer in headlights sort of moment. That's okay as well. Just ask yourself the question, because what you'll find is that when you're doing other activities that don't require as much brain power, so for example brushing your teeth or driving or getting the kids ready for school or whatever the case may be, you might find that things start to come to you and there might just be a word that comes through. So we're looking for 1 to 3 words of a particular sensational feeling that you want to feel on a daily basis. And then what you then want to think about is the way to connect that as well. It's like, if I had to become the person, we've talked about in terms of habits, right? That to have a successful habit implemented, you need to think about you need to associate with a new identity. So you need to associate around well, who is the type of person that is going to be successful in terms of reaching these goals, right? So, if you want to be an athlete, would an athlete sleep in, or would they miss a training session? No, they probably wouldn't. So if you want to be an athlete, then you need to take steps in vote of that new identity and start doing the things that an athlete does, right? So the same sort of mentality. So for the person who is successful, or your ideal version of yourself, or someone that wants to achieve, how would you feel? You need to connect with that emotion. And sometimes a visual aid can help as well. So if you find a picture of something that really resonates with the emotion or the feeling that you want to have, then have that somewhere where you're reminded of it constantly. It reminds you of the feelings and the identity, or the feelings associated with the person that you'll become in order to achieve the goals that you get. And anyway, the whole point is this is going to give you that constant inspiration and that motivation on the days that you don't need, right? Because you can stop when you're not feeling great. You can stop and go, well, is there a reason for this? Do I want to sit with this? Am I comfortable being here? Or, is this consistent or congruent with who I want to be and who I need to become to get on with what I want? And then we start connecting a little bit more to our why we want to change, why we want to take on a new health and fitness regime, for example, or achieve anything in life, right? So, that is really it for today. One thing I've actually done, so I love vision boards and goal setting and all that sort of stuff, but I've taken it a slightly different track. So this week I've already done it, but I've also assigned some of my clients this task as well. So instead of just having a vision board, I've now given them the task of thinking about, okay, well, what are some of the, what are three words that describe the feelings associated with the person who is a person that undertakes and be as successful in the way that you want. Well, if that's the case, then yeah, once you've got those words, find the images, and then so when you do your vision board, just get like a mood board template, for example, and just pick 3 to 4 pictures, and then basically put those pictures in. So what it is you've got your vision board, and then underneath you've got, okay, but who's the person that I need to become to be able to get to the point where I can actually achieve everything on my vision board. Anyway, that's today's random thoughts. Completely different tangent to where I thought I was going to be. I had a bit more of a structured conversation. Hopefully you got something out of that. Really keen as well if you leave in the comments like what some of the I guess things that came up for you in terms of conditional happiness that you put on yourselves and those internal rules, and then you know how you've potentially flipped that into that new paradigm. All right, let me know and speak to you soon.